From the shores of Malibu where the waves are pumping, to the Great Wall of China, and back to the streets of Las Vegas where the UFC is coming. We are live. This is This Time Radio, the show we talk about what you think about but may be afraid to voice. Do not worry. We will voice it for you. We talk about everything on This Time. No holds barred radio, folks. TV, film, UFC, sports, politics, sex, drugs, rock and roll. And today we have a very special guest along with my co-host and producer, TJ DeSantis. TJ, how are you? You're good as always.
I'm good. I've got my chrome dome, which will have to suffice because I don't have a tinfoil hat around, but, you know.
That's all right. We're used to the dome. Anyway, from the dome to the hat, and here we have a very special guest, a man I've known for a number of years, man I've actually worked with. We'll talk about that too. One of the funniest comedians. You never know what's going to come out of his mouth. It could shock you. It could make you laugh. It could scare the hell out of you, but it'll definitely put a smile on your face. Sam Tripoli. Sam.
Bruce, good to see you. TJ, good to see you. Pleasure as always to be here. And Bruce, I miss you, bro. It's been a while. Yeah. We were getting you into stand-up. You were crushing it. And then chaos breaks out around the world. And here we are. I'm honored to be on your show. Thanks for having me, buddy.
Thanks, Sam. Yeah, we got hit by COVID. And, I wanted to make sure that people like Joe Rogan and Brendan Schaub and other people definitely didn't have me interfering with their success.
Okay. I think it was a global conspiracy, the whole Bruce out of comedy.
Well, I think we should start a conspiracy that COVID actually was designed to get Bruce, out of the limelight because he's already, such a big deal when it comes to sports and the UFC and pop culture there. I don't think the world was ready for Bruce.
I don't know if we're ready for Def Jam Bruce Bruffer. I don't know if we're ready for that.
I want to do it again, Sam. I'm so busy with a lot of things. We'll talk about it. But
you're crushing it.
Thank you. For the audience, though, just so they know, and TJ, you know this too, that it was right before COVID. Sam and I got together. We got a great crew of comedians together, from Tony Hinchcliffe, Eddie Bravo, to, another 7 or 8 comedians. Really, really funny stuff. Great night. We had the first It's Time comedy night at the Laugh Factory in Hollywood. I'll never forget walking up there and seeing my name on the marquee. It's Time comedy night on the marquee. Your name, Sam. I was blown away. I had a bucket list experience to have my name on a comedy show marquee. We did the show. The show went great. I had to come out. Sam will always bust my balls about it. I have my cards in my hand with things to talk about. That would never happen again, Sam. It was my first night.
All good.
But, in between warming up and introducing each comedian, it worked, and we sold out the show. And then the Comedy Store was ready to give us the small room to start, and we were going to have a once-a-month show. It wasn't about money. It was about a great night of fun, and COVID hit.
Boom. COVID hit, and it put a pause, but it is a pause, and we will unpause it whenever you're ready, buddy.
I'm going to be ready. I want to unpause it. There's no question.
Let's unpause it. Let's get up there, bro. Let's get that wonderful hair on stage, and let's see you rock, dude.
All right. We'll do our best. We'll see how it goes. And I'm all for it, Sam, with that note. So, Sam, the comedy world after the COVID world, it's all back together right now. Everything's full bore ahead. Everybody's on the road again. All the comedy stores are happening again. But what about this heckler situation? Like with the concerts, with people getting hit by phones and stuff like that.
Yeah, it's crazy.
What's happening in the comedy show? Is it crazy in the comedy world too?
Yeah. I you know what I blame this on? YouTube and comment sections. That now everybody thinks they have to comment on everything. And, I've had people come to my shows with their phones, and I chase them off and ragdoll them a little bit. And, it's just weird. We're living in a weird time where we're kind of adjusting to this thing where social media has taught us, that we can kind of scream and shout at people. And now people are bringing that from social media into the real world. And it's crazy because I love hecklers. Hey, give me a reason not to do my act that I'm over. And I'm just snatching souls, man. There's a whole graveyard behind the Comedy Store of hecklers that I had to put 6 feet deep, dude. Give me a reason, man. Give me a reason not to, because I came from Vegas. I started stand-up in Vegas. And when I did stand-up, we only had one open mic every other week. And so we had to do shows in weird places. Like I would end up like doing the middle act for like rock bands. So I would have to go up on stage and just start, just dealing with all the hecklers. So I used to love that stuff. So now on the stage, like, hey, dude, all day, I'm all about this, man. I'm over my act. Let me just talk to you and just teach you something. And people heckle for different reasons, Bruce. I broke it down why men and women heckle. Women heckle because they're attracted to the guy and they want to kind of flirt with him in a weird way. They also heckle because they're not the center of attention anymore, and that upsets them. They like to be the center of attention. Guys heckle for a couple reasons. One, their girl is laughing at the comic more than they ever laugh at them. That upsets them. They're the funny guy in their group, and they don't like that somebody's being funnier than them. Or they want to be a comic, and this is their kind of way to see if they could get laughs in the comedy club. So it happens for all these different reasons, but it's super interesting. And I always tell young comedians when they're dealing with hecklers, is just remember that these are day one open micers and that you've been doing comedy for a while. So they're brand new to this, and you gotta be ready to rock. So yeah, it's interesting.
It kind of gets back to the fact we live in this attention-getting, wanting society. Everybody wants to be popular on Instagram. Everybody wants to be a star without talent. Be a star for doing something, whatever. We see all these different things. It's a different world, Sam. It's a very different world.
Going viral is going to be the downfall of this society. Just everybody trying to go viral and just doing the most ridiculous things to get viral. And I mean, it's getting to the point where people committing like weird felonies on camera just to see if they could go viral. And it's just really weird to me. And it's just a sign of maybe we as a society need to like pump the brakes on social media a little bit more. I mean, they're just crazy stuff when you have like women licking the toilet seats of airplanes. You're like, what is that? Like, what do you want out of that? What is, and this is where we're at right now.
I know it's horrible.
What's weird to me is what do you think it is, guys? Because, I understand, being dedicated to your craft and then gaining notoriety and then, fame, if you will. I think we have a very loose definition of fame. I think there's like maybe 10 people in the history of the world have ever been famous. If you can drop someone in any part of the world and they can't get around, that's famous. How many people can you drop into any situation where they can't get around comfortably? Not many.
It's like Taylor Swift and no one else.
At this point, yeah, kind of, for the most part. But like, I firmly believe that there's this need, and it's not necessarily like for fame, because I don't think it's fame, but there's this, it's more than attention though, Sam, because you talk about what people are willing to do for attention. Like, I don't know what it is, if there's some sort of, something that gets released in their brain, like an endorphin, the adulation, or just the 15 minutes of exposure. Something has happened over the last 15, 20 years where people crave this sort of attention and are willing to do the dumbest shit to get it.
Well, it was very interesting. A long time ago, there was something called Girls Gone Wild. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
And they were doing interviews.
I played poker with the owner.
Yeah. They were doing interviews with the girls, and they go, "Why do you do this?" And the girls went, "Because I want to be famous." They're like, "Why do you want to be famous?" Because it's literally, I just want people to give me free stuff. And, there is something about that. A lot of these people go viral. How much talent do they have? So what chance do you have in life, right? So now look at the Catch Me Outside girl. Right. I mean, like, you could say whatever you want about her, and I think she's a lot smarter than people want to give her credit for, because she played this perfectly. And now she makes millions of dollars a month on OnlyFans. And you're like, what? I mean, like millions of dollars. So there's that chance of like, it's a combination of like what American Idol taught us, which is being famous overnight, combined with the Kardashians, who are like, dude, I get paid to do literally nothing.
Right.
And then now like the viral stuff. So it's super interesting. And you see it a lot. Like if you could, like the New York Post, I've been wanting to do a show on like YouTube where I just go over the New York Post and like how ridiculous it's gotten and what's and the stories that they do. But if you're like, I had a friend of mine, his wife, she got in trouble at a restaurant because people were complaining that her chi-chis were too out. She had too big of chi-chis and they were out, and people were complaining. So the New York Post ran a story on it, and her OnlyFans just shot up. So it's like, that's what's out there. If you can get your name out there, people are going to listen to your podcast. People are going to check out your OnlyFans. They're going to subscribe to Rockfin or whatever it is, or Patreon, whatever you're on. So it's interesting. There's a real, Eddie Bravo was talking about yesterday. We now live in an economy where people make money on the internet to buy stuff on the internet.
Yeah.
Yep. Exactly. And this OnlyFans is a phenomenon. I was reading an article the other day about the 10 top OnlyFans earners. Oh my God. I mean, Cardi B is right at the top with millions of dollars each month.
Millions of dollars.
And the other 9 or 8, I've never even heard of, and they're making millions. And obviously it's pretty much all women.
China Black now found Christ, but when she was on OnlyFans, she was making like 20 mil a month. A month.
Oh my God.
A month. But here's the thing, Bruce.
Month?
The to be a top 5% on OnlyFans, you have to make $500 a month. That's the illusion of that stuff. And it gets into this thing. And like, Bruce, you've been around the UFC forever. I mean, you too, TJ, you've been around the UFC forever. You remember the old school days and those guys that did like UFC 1, UFC 2, they were outlaws. They were just like, this is what they're good at. And the same thing, like I used to interview adult film stars back in the day. And that was a time when they were outlaws. You were more like, can you believe these girls do this? Now you see all these YouTube shows, they're interviewing porn stars like they're real people. Like, they're like, oh man, what's your take on like what's going on with France and the revolution? Like, they're interviewing, like, it's like, well, we're taking this outlaw stuff and we're trying to make it mainstream. And it's gotten so weird. The early UFC, like the Chuck Liddells of the world, fought because that's what they were good at. That was their shot of changing their economic like situation. Now we're taking all these stuff and we're trying to mainstream it, and people aren't ready for it.
Like Tank Abbott was going to fight no matter what, right?
Yes.
Like either he's going to go to jail or he's going to try to win, championships in the UFC.
And if he goes to jail, he's going to fight in jail.
Right, of course, 100%. Now, my question is, when's the last time anyone asked Tank Abbott about his thoughts on France?
Yeah, 100%. That's what we're getting into. The mainstream of outlaw is like, I think it's super crazy right now. Like all these things we used to do on the fringes, man, is now like becoming mainstream. And I just don't think people are built for that life.
I don't know what life people are built for, because it seems like there's so many different things happening right now. It's recreating itself, with the whole COVID situation. I mean, communication skills are going to hell in a handbasket. How many top comedians are you going to see in 10 years from now, considering the verbal skills that people are learning now at a young age? Do you ever think about that?
Dude, I have kids. It's just like I'm just saving up for tutors. That's all I'm going to do. Just tutor these kids so they're literate, man. It's crazy out there. Dude.
What are you going to tutor them on, though, Sam? Because here's the thing. We're talking about the internet and this e-commerce. And I think about, man, the most important thing, I think, for any young, kid coming up in the world, if they want to make quick money, it's like they need to focus on how to weaponize the internet. Like, figure out what they're good at and then weaponize the internet. Like, I can't scroll through Instagram without seeing someone trying to tell me that they make $20,000 a month on a YouTube channel that they spend 6 hours a week on. Or beyond that, like bringing it back to comedy, like I can't go through Facebook without watching a Matt Rife video. Like, I think Matt Rife is funny, but somehow
he's great. He's a good guy too.
But he has weaponized the algorithm to show up on everybody's Facebook reels, and I don't know how he did it. Again, I think he's phenomenal. I don't know how he did it.
Well, I'm with you, man. And, I know there's a lot of people in MMA who really love Zuckerberg, but I think what this guy's done to just how we interact with each other is extremely dangerous. And one thing in comedy he's done is he's elevated what I call anthem rock, the Nickelback of comedy. It's like broad strokes on simple ideas and like very complex ideas that make you think. It gets shadow banned to the nether regions, and it's super dangerous. And I mean, I don't even want to get into the fact that like they're trying not to teach kids cursive. Like, what is that about? That's super dangerous to me. And there's things that I think there's some very dark sides to that. But you're completely right, man. Who knows what the future holds?
How do we even come up with a signature if you don't know how to write cursive? You know what I mean? I mean, I don't ever write
You
cursive.
want to know
but
my honest opinion, and this may get a little too conspiratorial, why they
Let's
want to
the
get
honest
rid of
opinion.
Let's go.
Cursive?
What you got?
Because AI can't read cursive.
Is that true?
Yeah, AI can't read cursive.
Wow. All right. I actually buy that a little bit.
So if you're writing, AI can't. Dude, you saw like Zuckerberg was like, we'll pay anybody $1 million who can figure out how to get AI to read cursive. Can't do it.
Yeah. All right. So I'm going to bring this back to a little more conspiracy theory. And I hate to say this, but like there's a lot of people that were anti-mask. And I'm not even going to talk about the mask being an issue of freedom and things like that. But I will say this. The one thing I will say about wearing a mask during COVID, I kind of felt relieved that if I was out in public wearing a mask, that AI couldn't tell who I was just by facial recognition software.
There is something about that, but I mean, it's getting down to eyes right now, so it's interesting, man. It's interesting. That whole thing, I don't know if we'll look back on it and go, what were we doing? Because who knows how intelligent people were. I also want to say something about intelligence right now. People are always like, oh man, kids are so dumb. Everybody's so dumb. Dude, we're not dumber. We're just saturated with more useless knowledge than ever. Okay.
That's true.
Don't tell me like in the 1500s, Russian peasants were all like Nobel Prize winning like scientists. Okay. They
Right.
just had less information being saturated in. Okay. We're so saturated right now. So you're like, oh, can you name all the 50 states? Yeah, probably most people can. I probably can. Right. But if you can tell me what's going on what's going on with this celebrity, that celebrity, because that's people are being bombarded and drowned in with all this useless knowledge right now. So I don't think people are dumber. I think, I remember when my grandmother would not use an answer machine because she thought it was the devil, right? I mean, ask my grandma to send an email right now. She's never going to be able to do it ever.
Right.
She couldn't tell you how to do an email. And we just have different skill sets now.
Yeah. That's another thing too, is every generation has said the next form of technology is the devil.
Yeah.
The radio was going to be the devil, and then it was the television, and then it was the internet. And now I'm like, I don't know if technology is the devil, but man, it can be the worst thing if it falls into the wrong hands.
I agree.
No, another thing here that I don't know if we touched on or not, and part of me, I got just swayed for a second. A little family emergency just happened I had to deal with. With that being said, with the whole social media thing, it's creating this, I'm not happy with my world. I want to live that world.
Right.
I want to live that world. And people are losing touch with their reality of what their world is all about.
But the world that they see of others on Instagram, Bruce, that's not real.
Yeah, they've done studies.
I would say 80% of the time, and that's probably being very conservative, it's not real at all. It's posing.
It didn't even start with social media. It goes back to Cribs on MTV. Even when people would these celebrities welcome to my house, it wasn't even their house.
Right.
They were Pauly Shore famously borrowed furniture from the Standard Hotel down the street from his house to put into it for his Cribs day. It's a very famous story. The people were lying about it all the time. This is the illusion. I mean, they've been busting Instagram models for lying. They busted this Instagram model for acting like she was in first class, and then someone took a picture of her, and she was in Coach with everybody else.
Yeah.
So it's it is the illusion. But for me, as I study comedy and all that stuff, I think the future, there's going to be real currency and authenticity.
I agree.
Like the people who are authentic, people are going to be because, people, I tell this to people starting out and trying to be content creators, people are looking for a lighthouse in the sea of shit, man. That's what they really want. They want someone to be that lighthouse because that they know is being authentic to them and giving them the good stuff.
But the problem is can people sort of decipher the bullshit from the authentic people? Because everything seems to be bullshit. And when someone is sort of authentic, I think it doesn't hit the mark.
Bro, it's my whole thing with this Lizzo stuff, man. Everyone is shocked that she's fat shaming fat people. I'm like, this is a chick who gaslit the country into believing she was sexy, right? I mean, for years. Of course. like America, we do have a problem. We're infatuated with liars. We love people who lie to us, tell us what we want to hear instead of what we need to hear. So there is an issue with that. 100%. How many times do we hear like the male feminist is really a scumbag at heart? We hear it all the time. And that's why I'm like, I'm going to have kids and I'm going to teach them sometimes if things are too good to be true, guess what? They're probably not true.
Right. I mean,
that's an old adage, but it's a very true saying.
Yeah, my dad always told me, believe nothing that you hear and only half of what you see. And I think in the modern era, we need to bring that down to believe nothing that you hear and maybe an eighth of what you see.
My father told me that, and it was like, I come from paranoid people, but it's like, I'm very thankful for that because it's allowed me to have a really good BS meter.
Right.
You know, the other thing is too, is that it's the old adage while we're talking about adages, but perception is reality. Bottom line, what people see.
It is, but perception is reality until you realize that the perception of something being real, it's just a fallacy because it's all bullshit. And like,
but that's the beauty of it, man. That if you lie long enough, it's gonna come out and it's gonna catch up with you. And I've seen it happen even in comedy. I'm not gonna say his name because he's trying to change his thing, but this guy was known for stealing jokes forever.
Right.
And I remember there was a couple guys stealing jokes.
I'll say the name. You're talking about Mency, right?
Yeah, Mencia. And there's another guy. He's trying to change his name. But man, I remember thinking to myself, these guys are just jacking jokes from everybody and nothing's happening. And eventually it all comes out in the wash. Mencia's problem is that he's trying to go around telling everybody he didn't steal jokes. And we all know he did. So he can't get anywhere. He can't change his fortune because he's gaslighting everybody. But I do believe it all comes out in the wash. Eventually, if you put out the negative energy, it's where I am spiritually right now. I'm trying to do higher vibrational shit. So I vibrate on a higher level. And that is trying to be as honest as I possibly can. But it all comes out. If you lie long enough, you will be discovered.
You know, that's one thing I think about, you know, with the Mencia stuff. And this is what I like about the comedy community more than anything is comics will hold other comics accountable. Like when sort of, you know, when Joe Rogan started going after Carlos Mencia, you know, Christ, it's almost 20 years ago, it feels like at this point. But when that stuff was going down, I didn't even really care that much about comedy, but man, that was so enraging to me as someone, you know, who works in broadcasting and understands what it's like to create a show and try to, you know, work on things. If someone were stealing my things or imitating those things, like I would feel so wrong. And Joe was a guy that was speaking up on behalf of multiple comics that for whatever reason didn't necessarily want to ruffle feathers. And I feel like that community is one that is going to check you real quick.
Well, you know what's so interesting is if you look at Joe, even though Joe wasn't the Joe that he is now,
right?
He was still pretty big.
Yeah,
and look what happened to him after he called out Carlos Mencia. So he talks about he got dropped by these people, that people, because Carlos had his show on Comedy Central.
Right.
So that was Joe Rogan, other people. So I used to perform at the Comedy Store all the time, and we would have like when Carlos was showing up and in the room, like the door guy or the cashier would be like, so people knew that he was in the room. And then you would just flip your act and start doing crowd work so he couldn't steal any of your jokes. And he can deny that all he wants. I 100% was there. And he would, you know, and we could get into it, but he used to bump people all the time. And I used to have a rule that if he did more than 30 minutes, I wasn't going up because I felt like that was a headliner thing. But he 100% did it. And now he's going around telling people he didn't do it. And that's why he's never going to get out where he was. You have to be authentic, in my humble opinion.
The internet doesn't forget. I still watch
snuff film, guys. By the way, that's a snuff film of Carlos's career. And the biggest lesson you can get out of that is that whole thing happened because of Carlos Mencia's ego. If he didn't walk up on stage and try to challenge Rogan, he might have a totally different career right now. And we've seen this happen over and over and over. When you want to get into, I don't know how much you're into crypto, but the FTX thing, right? Sam Bankman-Fried, this whole collapse is because he wanted people to go after Binance. Even though Binance had invested $2 billion into FTX. So as soon as Binance heard that, He pulled his money. Binance pulled all their money out, which caused the collapse of FTX. It would never have happened if Sam Bankman-Fried didn't have such an ego and say, go after my major investor. Like, ego is not your amigo, man.
It's a liability.
Or as I like to say,
ego.
I got to say this, Lego your ego.
Yeah,
you know?
dude.
Lego, you remember that old Lego your ego.
Oh, yeah.
Are you big on crypto, Sam?
Dude, I've been talking about this. I was a crypto millionaire, dog. I mean, I was investing in all these shit coins, dude, crushing it. And then, dude, it all collapsed, dog.
You lost it?
I mean, dude, I got screwed by Celsius. That guy kept all my coins. I'm still waiting to get my coins back.
Wow.
But I mean, I was investing in shit coins, dude. Like, I was like, dude, I was investing in cum rocket, like porn stars be like, this coin makes me horny. I'm like, buy cum rocket, bro. Let's get her squirting, dude. And now it's like, we did not listen. I look back at the internet and I look back at crypto and I'm like, we didn't know how good we had it. Wall Street bets. We were investing in GameStop and making tons of cash. And like, we didn't know how good we had it. And now it's all getting regulated. And I think it was done on purpose. But yeah, I love crypto. I was big into crypto, man.
I have
Maybe
a
they
buddy
should
of mine.
You know what? They should come out with a coin called shitcoin.
Shitcoin, bro. Let's invest in
Bitcoin.
shitcoin, dude. I was a shitcoin millionaire.
I have a buddy of mine that actually got into Bitcoin in like 2004.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
That's what's his name, right?
What's that?
What's his name? The guy that does the MMA betting?
Oh, no, you don't know this guy. Well, he's another one. He's another one too. But a guy that I used to do commentary for, he had a little production company where he just shot cage fights in the Midwest in barns. And he was talking about Bitcoin back then. And I'm like, dude, I barely knew how to like log on to any of the peer-to-peer networks to download something illegally. But this dude's trying to tell me there's money that's on the internet that's not real. No chance in hell I was ever getting involved in that.
Dude, how about the guy that paid for like a slice of pizza with like 1,000 Bitcoin? Imagine if you held on to that, dude. What you would be worth right now.
So there's all these stories in the Naked City. You talk about people making money. I mean, there's some stories coming out of Florida now. I mean, the ticket just sold in Florida. Somebody won the $1.58 billion Mega Millions jackpot.
Yeah.
Sam, would you make public if you were the winner of that? Would you let people know that you won it?
No.
There's no way you would.
I would show up in some kind of like mask of some sort, some lucha libre mask. No one would ever know my name. Yeah. And then I would just disappear, bro. I would bust off a bunch of pieces.
There's no way.
I love seeing people
disappear.
I love seeing people make money. Personally, I would keep it quiet. Obviously, people around me would know, but I would keep it quiet if there's a way to do that. It's kind of hard to keep quiet when you suddenly buy a $50 million castle in Malibu or something like that.
I mean, dude, if I won the Mega Millions jackpot, I would hope that I could try to somehow keep it a secret for myself. Because I don't want to change the way I live my life. Like, I enjoy doing what I like. Work is not a means to make money for me. Work is a means for me to like wake up in the morning and have a purpose in life. And
no, I get that, man. I totally get that.
I would publicize the charities I create. That's what I would publicize.
There you go.
I respect that.
It's just for me, I think a lot of people fail to realize how much a traditional, because we're creatures of habit. People are just creatures of habit. They just are. When you no longer have a reason that you have to be A, B, or C on any given day, you tend to sort of lose your sense of self. And I mean, there's a show on the Learning Channel or whatever. I don't know what channel it is, but one of them where it's just like winning the lottery destroyed my life. And it's like, yeah, man, like if you decided to tell everyone that you did business with that you're out the game because you won millions and millions of dollars, it's just a matter of time until you are broke again and need a job real bad.
My whole theory is we live in an inverted world where they flipped everything on us. What is right is wrong. What is up is down. And the biggest thing that they've taught is that the journey to your destination isn't important. And I think it's the most important thing. When you listen to like, all these big name comics talk about comedy, most of the time they talk about, these crazy gigs they used to do for no money. Very rarely do they bring up, hey, I played Madison Square Garden. and they're very proud of that, but they're really proud of their journey. And what, American Idol did to us was make people think they should get it overnight. There's something about learning every step along the way. And so you see that a lot with, let's say, people who make billions of dollars in the lottery or millions of dollars in the lottery. That wasn't earned over time. That was handed to them, and they're not built for that life.
Right.
They're not built for that millionaire, billionaire life. Well, if it takes you over time, you start learning all these lessons on life, how to deal with people. Like I'm learning that right now. Like even though I'm 50, I'm learning right now that maybe I don't need to let everybody in all the time. Maybe I don't need to be, Captain Save Everybody, because it blows up in my face constantly. So these are things we learn over life, and this instant fame, instant money, where we live in, creates so much problems. I mean, even the internet is allowing 20-year-olds, let's say, to have access to millions of people saying opinions that, let's say, they may not agree with in 10 years, but now there's a permanent record of them saying something, and they may say something that will hurt their ability to earn money down the line. They weren't meant to be there yet. You shouldn't be saying that to you in your late 30s or early 40s when you've lived enough life to know what you can say or how to say the things properly.
Well, this is what I will say about fame and success and riches. And I think that, I can bring this back to mixed martial arts very easily and say that, sometimes fame, notoriety, and success can be the absolute worst thing for a human being. And when I think about that, I think about John Jones. John Jones is the greatest mixed martial artist that has ever stepped foot in a cage. He's destroyed the best fighters in devastating fashion and has just basically ran through them like it was a video game on easy. Yet there are some people that will say John Jones is not the greatest fighter of all time, and their reasoning has nothing to do with athletic performance, has nothing to do.
Those people would be wrong.
Right. And I'm sorry. And it's just like, it kind of makes me think, like, what would it be like if there was no money in mixed martial arts? And some people say, well, the UFC doesn't pay their fighters X, Y, and Z. First off, no fighter ever gets into mixed martial arts because they want to be a millionaire. They don't.
No, I'm with you. I understand what you're saying.
And it would be interesting to me if what the sort of politics would look like in MMA if no one ever made money. If it was always just you're a Tank Abbott guy trying to go do something that keeps you out of trouble.
It'd be horrible.
It'd be crazy.
Maybe,
but my whole thing is this. It's just like, what John Jones has done in his career. He has faced the most savage of savages. There's very few people that have a resume that compares to John Jones. The only other person, I think, maybe two, is Pride Fedor and Pride Vanderlei Silva. Right. Outside of that, the murder's road that this guy is taking on. And you have to look at what he does for a living, and you got to be like, that's a little crazy to get into.
Right. No sane person goes down that road.
Right. So I'm not condoning some of the more like negative stuff that he's done. I mean, I love John Jones. Anybody from the 607, I root for all the time. Upstate New York,
right?
Him, Aljamain Sterling, both 607. So I'll always root for them. But I also can't be like, you can't be surprised when sometimes these guys who don't play by the rules all the time in life don't play by the rules. Do you understand? I'm not condoning some of the stuff that he's done, but I also go, you got to look who he is and what he's done in his life, and
I mean, I hate to say
you're not condoning it.
I just hate to say it. Some of the stuff that John has done and has had in his personal life and how it's not really impacted his professional life as far as like performances, actually, to me, adds to the allure of how savage this guy is.
He is savage, but he's his own worst enemy.
Yeah, 100%.
And I wrote about, I've said this before on the show, Sam, but in my book, I had a chapter on John, partial chapter, and I wrote it before I ever became champion, and how I had dinner with him. And I said, I was noticing, I said, John, you could be the greatest of all time, but there's one kink in your armor, and your worst enemy is right here. You got to watch yourself.
But he was so young, and that has a lot to do with it. So young. I mean,
well, we got back to making money, being young. You can say the same thing about Conor McGregor, the way he's handled himself in certain situations. And, youth and money doesn't always go together.
I mean,
it needs direction. It needs direction. Right. It needs support.
Right. Well, and also too, when you are young and, a lot of people start giving you attention, we don't have a big filter when we're young about who we surround ourselves with. It's like, oh, you showed up, you're friendly to me, let's go hang out. We had some fun times, now we're friends and we're super close. But during that whole time, I don't realize as a young 20-something that you're just kind of living off my coattails and we're having fun. We're not
And
really
that's
friends.
another thing, bro. Like, we have gotten away from listening to the wisdom of our elders.
Yeah.
And I think that's very dangerous. And, you know, I remember when I was really young, I came into LA just full of like a bull. Like, I was the greatest. Nobody could tell me what to do. And a comic who'd been doing it a while back then, he was picked by Sam Kinison at 19 years old, Jimmy Schubert, pulled me aside going, dude, you're really funny, but you haven't done anything. You need to calm your attitude. And that really resonated with me. But we've created a society where people don't want to listen to the people who've been around. You know, we've created a society where these corporations would rather have young and attractive over wisdom. I mean, even the guy who was in the submarine that just disappears, like, I'm not hiring 50-year-old white guys. I'm like, oh, you don't want wisdom on how to do a submarine underwater? But that's all part of it. Like, nobody's listening to people who've done it before them and the pitfalls that they should look out for. And I think that's done on purpose as well. So I think you should always, 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 dude, I'm 50 and you know, I'm in recovery. And, you know, sometimes, like, I'll be in these recovery meetings and I'll hear an older guy speak, and it's like, it's the greatest thing I've ever heard in my life. And I just think that when I was young, how much I would dismiss that as like, whatever, old man. And now as I get older, I start to realize the wisdom that they're imparting. And some of my favorite meetings to go to are all like 67-year-olds with like some crazy stories of the past and how they were able to overcome. So I think that's you know, again, we're like all the youth of today, but it's interesting for sure. How do you get these people who are the top 1% of the 1% to listen to people who did it before them?
Yeah.
Knowledge is king. Knowledge is
right.
king. Experience is wealth.
I remember getting on a flight one time, and the person I was traveling with like made a comment to me offhanded about how the pilot of the plane looked like they were 75 years old and flew in World War II, and how it made him nervous. And I was like, are you kidding me? Think about all the flight hours this dude's got.
Yeah, for sure.
You know, like maybe the computer systems, you know, fly the plane these days, and maybe he doesn't understand them. But if we have total failure of the computer systems, that dude's going to glide this thing to the nearest runway.
Here's my theory. 20-year-olds are only good for having sex with. Okay. Until then, be quiet and get some life experience. All right. Outside of that, I don't want to hear it.
Little too young for me at this stage. Legal
I'm
or
with
not.
you, bro.
Little too young.
I'm
young.
with you, dude.
I
just want to sleep. I just want to sleep.
You know, speaking about, let's switch over to some current event news here for a second, because we're going to close down the show in a few minutes. The Nate Diaz, Jake Paul fight. And TJ, have you heard about the pay-per-view buys? I've heard rumors that it hit 4 million. I don't know if that's true. I heard it was about 800,000 before the main event, but it definitely did well over 1 million buys.
Here's the problem, Bruce. Those numbers, I don't know what to believe anymore. A lot of them are digital. Obviously, I think all of them are digital. And like, to get those numbers, you're going to have someone on the inside that A, has access to those numbers, and B, is willing to tell someone. It doesn't matter. When anybody tells me, oh, this pay-per-view did this amount of buys, again, that's something that I've heard. And going back to that analogy, I don't believe anything that I've heard.
Right. Well, one thing is, it was the second most bet on DraftKings, right?
Mm-hmm.
It was like the second most bet event ever.
Yeah.
Crazy.
I mean, but also, too, I don't think that you can necessarily equate betting slips to buys.
No, but I'm just saying that it was popular.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that's just the Diaz brand, right?
Yeah.
I mean, like,
it had to be. I mean, Jake Paul, he's done, pardon me for interrupting you, Jake Paul, he's done numbers and all, but his last couple of fights didn't do these kind of numbers, even with the MMA fighters and the boxer he recently fought. This is MMA, this is UFC MMA eyeballs tuning into this show. And now you have Logan Paul announcing he's going to fight Dylan Dennis. I don't know if that's going to create the same kind of numbers. Not that Dylan Dennis is not popular, but he's not Nate Diaz.
Yeah, well, Dylan Dennis too is notorious for, you know, talking about things that never come to fruition. For better,
well, isn't there some kind of stipulation?
They announced the fight. We'll see if it happens.
There's like some stipulation in contract. There's a giant penalty if he pulls out.
I don't know.
But that fight doesn't interest me
No.
because I don't
Dude,
think Dylan Dennis is a striker in any way.
Dylan Dennis isn't even a really big deal outside of, the conversation between MMA fans. No one is really craving a Dylan Dennis UFC fight. You know what I mean?
I don't think so, dude, at all.
I hate to say it. No disrespect to the guy. I don't even really know much about him. I know
I don't have anything against it. I just know he's a jiu-jitsu guy.
Yeah, he
you
is.
know, so
He is.
which is great. I love jiu-jitsu. I do it, but I don't see him as a striker. And I know that Logan Paul isn't like into boxing the way his brother is.
Right.
And by the way, I love the Paul brothers. I mean, I really love what they've done, and I love the brand, and you should respect it. And again, like I know Jake is kind of brass, but I like that. I don't mind it, and he's helped a lot of people make a lot of money, so I respect that. And I just don't. This isn't a fight that gets me excited. There are people out there he can fight.
Yeah.
That would be a lot more interesting. But I also know that, like, I think we have expectations of the Paul brothers that these guys are like, that they should be like in this legit boxing world. And I think it's just like them living out a dream. And like, why do I want to see the Paul brothers versus a boxer that's absolutely going to annihilate them when I'm just here to see, like, I thought the fight the other night after the first couple rounds was fun. I'm not expecting like Crawford versus Spence, which was amazing. You're not supposed
to buy that. You're not supposed to buy that fight wanting high-level boxing. You know what I mean? And like that's the thing too. It's like I'll personally be honest with you. I'm new to boxing. I'm still learning a lot about boxing. I'm a mixed martial arts guy. I'm a jiu-jitsu guy. Like I love that stuff. To me, the Paul brothers, for whatever reason, people hate them. I feel like they're marks a little bit. They're buying into the idea that they're bad guys, and more often than not, those are the same people that are putting more money in their pockets, and good for them. But the Pauls are winning in so many ways because, like you said, Sam, they're kind of just living out this life's fantasy, making a career, more than a career out of it, having generational wealth come from this. It's pretty amazing. And the one narrative that I will say more than anything, I mean, I personally don't care too much about Jake Paul's next boxing match. I don't care about Logan Paul's next boxing match. I will say that as someone who appreciates professional wrestling, I won't say I'm a big professional wrestling fan. I don't watch
old school. Loved it.
Right. But dude, Logan Paul is one of the best wrestling performers of the modern day. And that is something that gets buried in a lot of shenanigans and a lot of the, building up these boxing matches. Like that dude is as good as anyone on the WWE's roster.
I give him all the credit in the world, and Logan's a buddy. He's a friend of the show, but he's a friend of mine. And congratulations to him on his recent announcement of his engagement to his lovely fiance. But the guy's out there killing it. More power to him.
Good for him.
Paul's killing it. Agree or not with Jake Paul and what he says, he's killing it. Agree or not with Jake Paul, he's bringing young eyeballs to the world of boxing. Whether those eyeballs will watch Canelo fight his next fight or Spence or Anthony Joshua, that's another story. They're going to watch what they watch, but it's at least bringing eyeballs to a sport which is more of an older fan base, with the exception of the Latino heritage, which is totally loving boxing from the moment they're born. I mean,
Latinos are great.
Hey,
with all the great Latino boxers out
if there was no Latina chicks, there'd be no hot chicks at metal concerts, by the way. Have you noticed that? You go around, all the hot chicks are Latinas.
I'll leave that one up to you. I haven't been at too many of those concerts, so okay. And boxing's so huge in Europe. I mean, they fill out huge arenas. There's two or three big boxing events a year here in America, but it's not like it was in the 80s and the 90s and the early 2000s.
But bottom line is this, and I think a lot of people sort of forget this: fight sports has always been one part spectacle and one part sport, and there's not anything wrong, in my opinion, on promoting the spectacle elements of certain fights and certain fight cards. And
you say that, let's talk about Musk and Zuckerberg.
Well, we got to make our way to the door here, Buff. We're running out of time.
Real quick, Dana White has announced that he has been negotiating or been talking to the Coliseum people in Italy.
Sure. Okay.
Is that real?
I think it's going to happen, Sam. I mean,
what weight class are they fighting at?
Honestly, to me, I don't think it'll be an MMA fight. It's going to have to be combat jiu-jitsu would be great. Let's do Eddie Bravo's combat jiu-jitsu format between those two.
Let's go, bro.
I'm down with that.
I got my first stripe in jiu-jitsu. Let's go.
Good for you.
Whatever happens, it's going to be a co-main or a main event bout on a UFC card. When and if it happens, it's going to be huge.
For sure. And a lot of people will bitch and complain about that, but it'll be the biggest thing ever. And it always brings more eyeballs to, the purists of the sport as well. And the fighters that everyone wants you to pay attention to, because that card will be stacked on the undercard. We mentioned Eddie Bravo. Sam, I know you got a show coming up with Eddie. Is it this weekend?
Yes, this weekend, Sunday night. We're at Eddie Bravo, myself, Tinfoil Hat Comedy Night, Xavier Guerrero. We're at the Cutting Room in New York City. Tickets are still available. It's going to be fun. The shows have been wild. Tinfoil Hat fans are the best. The Swarm, we're very blessed. And if you're in New York City and you see this, we'd love to have you come out to the show.
Eddie is
awesome.
one of my
Tell Eddie I
favorite
said
people.
hi, please.
One of my favorite people in the world. I have no idea if Eddie believes what he's saying all the time.
Oh, he does.
But I think he does, because he never wavers. It never feels like a bit, but man, he just crushes it.
I'm just going to tell you, I call him the prophet Eddie Bravo, because he gets a lot of things more right than he gets wrong.
I mean,
conspiracy theories are a very fun conversation with Eddie Bravo. That's all I can tell you.
Hey,
real quick before we sign off, I want to congratulate and thank The Rock for what he did for that fighter. He gifted the UFC fighter a new apartment.
That's so cool.
That is so amazingly cool. And if that doesn't show what an amazing heart, whether he's worth billions or not, it doesn't matter. He did this for this fighter, and it just touched my heart like there's no tomorrow.
Yeah.
I love
Pretty awesome stuff. All right. Also on the way out, Sam, where can people check out your other podcasts? I know you do one with Brian Callen.
I got Conspiracy Social Club with Brian Callen, Broken Simulation, Union of the Unwanted, and everything's at samtripoli.com. My dates. You can click on any of the banners. They'll take you to any of my shows.
Awesome. Sam, we got to get you out to a combat jiu-jitsu event that Eddie does.
I love that, bro. I'm 10th Planet Van Nuys, dude. I would love to go to check some of that stuff out.
We'll get you in the
Eddie.
Commentary booth with me and B-Mac.
Oh, please. Let's go.
That'd be fun.
And Sam, I've been with you. You always smell good, but I got to get you a bottle of my It's Time cologne.
Please, dude. Please. I need that for the ladies.
Hey,
Hook me
top
up.
Sour, #1 on Amazon, top sour.
Let's go, bro. Let's go.
You got it. You got a carte blanche.
I love it, buddy. I love you guys. Thanks for having me on.
Thanks, Sam. Appreciate it, sir.
Sam, take care, and let's work on that. It's Time Comedy Night. We're gonna do it. Just
you let me know when you want to rock, brother.
Got it. We can put it together like this.
Let's go. Let's go.